jacked up review show. It's a jacked up review show. Jacked up review show. It's a jacked up review show.
Join us as we cover many an insane movie and numerous cult TV phenomenons. Are you ready to get jacked up? Are you with us? Then listen on.
Listener discretion is advised. It's a jacked up review show. It's a jacked up review show. Jacked up review show. It's a jacked up review show. It's a jacked up review show. Jacked up review show.
Okay. And here we are. Welcoming back to the show, Kyle Hickman,
What's up, Cam? Glad to be here, man.
Chief Munson, and we have decided to tackle his absolute favorite band, System of a Down. This was the year to do a lot of music history and just tributes to popular bands outside of just doing the typical tackle a cult filmmaker or film franchise or something else acclaimed or infamous. So it's a good break. System of a Down, I think I can say, is just on every rock or metal fan's radar. You can't not know anyone who hasn't heard one of their songs.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah, pretty incredible impact for the less than 100 songs they put out throughout their entire career. So it's pretty cool.
yeah, I think it was like 5 years ago they were being imitated on SNL, and I instantly understood the lyrics. I'm like, oh, okay, no one else knew what they were singing. But they're like, I think I've heard that song. I'm like, yeah, they're making fun of the lyrics to Chop Suey.
Mm-hmm.
I actually never really knew who they looked like. I didn't even know they were Armenian, but I knew they were uncanny, and I definitely saw at least a few music videos if they were like playing at an award show or something like that. But, what was your introduction to them?
I got into System of a Down back in high school, right after they released the Toxicity album. Like a lot of folks, I mean, this is no different than us having our conversation about Chevelle and stumbling into them after the Red and Send the Pain Below. So same time period, they released Toxicity, and then you start backtracking your way through their previous album. And then when I, towards the end of high school is when they released, their next 3 albums. And so middle school and high school was very much my System of a Down phase. Still going strong. Almost 20 years later at this point. Still riding the high.
That's wild. I never really knew what to compare them to. They're just their own element. I can't really even compare them. They're just that whole manic energy and all, just channeling all these other just various elements.
Yeah,
wild samples.
Back in the iPod days when you do a lot of manual renaming things from Kazaa and LimeWire and BearShare and all that, you'd have to I would be pretty consistent about naming genres of all the bands I listened to.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a band that was really hard to put a genre on. So I ended up calling them dark metal, but the beauty of System of a Down is they can't be compared to anyone else. They have a very unique sound because they blended so many different styles into their own unique Armenian sound. It's super fascinating.
Yeah.
Exactly.
This is just blurting it in your face, and it's just and doing it in a way where you're kind of 1 minute kind of laughing, and the next minute you're like, oh man, that's fucking awesome, and oh man, that's it's brutal.
Well, they always keep you guessing. Their music, the transitions are so dramatic from one set piece to the next, right? Like go bridge to chorus to verse. Every time the flow changes, the pace changes like this. So that's what makes their music so interesting to listen to, because once you get settled into a sound, they change it up on you almost immediately.
They really do. Mm-hmm. And I mean, the element, as you've shown on all the actors and other cult icons you've covered, is like the element of surprise works in your favor sometimes, as opposed to, I'm not so sure I want to continue if I'm not sure what I'm going to get,
Well, it feels fresh. to people. I think that's why people gravitated towards System of a Down, because they were such a unique sound in the early and mid 2000s comparatively to the rest of like the new metal scene, which I don't hate. I certainly enjoyed the scene, but it sounds repetitive after a while. You listen to somebody's album and track 1 through track 12 don't really deviate too much. Maybe there's a slow song in there versus every System of a Down track. Yeah, they're using similar instruments, but it's vastly different. I mean, you look at an album like Toxicity, you've got Aerials, then you have like X and Prison Song and Science. I mean, those are vastly different styles and approaches. So you never get complacent when you listen to a System album.
Yeah. And I wanted to go along for the ride. They're kind of just a roller coaster. It's just all this inner despair and kind of just channeling it is like, it's the best kind of someone who wants to tell you how fucked their world is after work. And you, for whatever reason, you're just drawn to them. You just want to hear them as opposed to, oh dear, here's Debbie Downer.
Yeah, and I can understand why some people don't love System of a Down because their lyrics are so political. You know, there's not much casual listening on the
politically lying, unholy, cowardly killers.
Yeah, you pick the political conversation, drugs, prisons, alcohol, war. I mean, they talk about it all. There's not much casual listening in the catalog.
That's wild. I mean, it seems like no one wants to talk about any kind of social commentary and anything, but that's what it is. So
it's tough, yeah.
Tough angle. So did you go with their first album in 98 or was it Toxicity in 01?
Yeah, I didn't listen to their original album. So that was, again, like Chevelle, point number one wasn't a thing I knew about until that second album came around. So I got really hooked into Toxicity. I would listen to that. Remember back in the day when we used to listen to albums start to finish and not shuffle our way around? We'd actually listen to a CD, put it in, and just go before I got all scratched and stuff. Remember those days?
That was a thing, guys.
that was Toxicity for me, man. Like at the end of middle school, getting into high school, I'd crush that album over and over and over again. If you ask, hey Kyle, what's your top 5 albums of all time? Toxicity is up there. Sneak preview of how I think the System of a Down albums rank.
So you were like me with my cartoon movie collection where you're like, I'm surprised I haven't had to adjust tracking yet. I played the shit out of this.
Yeah, I'm surprised my Toxicity CD, which is probably in my car in my like CD thing, I'm surprised it still works. I wore that thing out. So yeah, I didn't come around
to
their self-titled.
Who are still listening to CDs. Nice.
I don't listen to them anymore. I wish I could lie to you and tell you I do. Just in case the day the Bluetooth goes to hell or something like that, and I don't have an aux cord, I've got mixed CDs and the old.
Sometimes I want to put a movie soundtrack on. I don't know.
That's what I have Spotify for.
These aren't on Spotify. Oh shit! So I love how the lead singer Serge is that how I say it?
Yep, Serge, thank you. Yep.
Yeah, their band's been compared to Frank Zappa, and yet he kind of almost looks like Zappa.
He does.
Also been compared to Manson, so I guess that's compliment? ?
You'll take Zappa every day over Charles Manson for sure. Yeah, Serge is they're all really unique looking guys, and I think that probably comes from the fact that I don't think the average American knows much about Armenian culture. So when you see a band full of either guys who were born in Armenia or, had immigrant parents from Armenia, it's a whole different look to the average American that wasn't represented in the rest of the metal rock scene at that moment in time, right? So, which is normally just like a bunch
that's already a very politically savvy, culture. So, I mean, that already kind of makes sense to me that if they're that insecure about, their just upbringing in America, I would probably want to sing about it too if I was into rock.
Well, what I learned about them early on is that they, so they formed in '94, and it was just Serge and Darren originally, the guitar player, and then they had a couple other guys that were in the band over the years. They started a band called Soil. Not the soil that
I was about to say. That's different.
An OG Soil. And they hired Shavo, who was the bass player, as their manager. So we started as the manager, eventually transitioned. The other two, the bassist and the drummer, both quit after the first show. Like they had like one jam session, one show. They both quit, and then Chavo signed on, and then they brought in John a little bit later. So that was kind of the OG days early on, and I think they were just kind of playing around with their sounds. Their band name System of a Down comes from a poem that Darren wrote called Victims of the Down. Did you read about this?
I did see that trivia. I was like, man, really? Jeez.
Yeah.
And very mystical here.
I think changing Victims to System was a smart move for a little bit more mass appeal. Victims of the Down maybe might have been more of a downer name, a little less mainstream appeal. I don't know.
Okay, so we're going to continually mention everyone's name here, guys. So for those still with us, Serge is the lead, as well as the keyboardist and rhythm guitarist, and Darren is also the lead guitarist. Chavo is doing the bass, and John is the drums. So again, if we circle around, okay, just follow us here.
And Darren also sings quite a bit, and his voice is very different than Serge. And it's a much sharper tone to it, and it catches people off guard when he jumps in a song and they don't expect it. Because Serge, you listen to Serge sing, and he has more of you can tell he's classically trained. Like he's got more of an operatic voice about him.
You definitely get that kind of vibe too.
Mm-hmm.
Like some elder or music teacher was like, "You got potential," and just was drilling him, every day, saying, "Just sing from the heart, sing from your soul." You lapse it all in front of me.
Yep. We'll listen to like a song like BYOB with a la 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 la. Oh. Like, like who else thinks of putting that into a song other than someone who's probably got a little bit of opera training in their background? So that's he's a good vocalist, man. Really good.
Did you know they had so much bootleg material?
So I knew, but I didn't. I guess it didn't connect the dots until today. Because it
wasn't like 9 Inch Nails where they're like, still it, who cares, fuck the industry. But it was kind of more of a they kind of just wanted to just kind of get it out there. There's like, it's not just mainstream enough, but hey, you're a fan, so here's a link to you. But
well, that's the hilarious part about their third album, Steal This Album, is that people were ripping all off their music, so they played on it, and it went with Steal This Album with look like a burned CD and Sharpie. So I was like, you sold me, guys. You had me hooked on Toxicity. Now you're like part of the zeitgeist, part of the times with your next album. I'm in. You guys are pretty good, because we used to download those in high school. I remember I went to high school with a guy named Trent he had access to the dark web and all the different places you could go, and he downloaded like their version of Snowblind, which is not on any of their albums, but I really enjoy, still listen to it this day. The Metro, which is a really good like track rip that wasn't on any of their albums.
Hell, even should put up a Spotify before they take all their songs down and just say, here's the bootlegs of System, and you can play.
Well, they are on Spotify. Like I've noticed some people will create playlists on Spotify and they'll have them on there.
Sweet.
So you can find them. And then they did that that cover with Wu-Tang Clan, which probably hasn't aged very well since they're using the N-word quite a bit in that song. So. But it sounds good, except for Serge. I'm sure that's not something they would be proud of to this day. So
I'm sure they do a lot of things differently, and then at the same time, like I'm not even sure, like how they would have progressed and even stood out. The general artist rule is you got to be your own weird self. But I don't know how they would have stood out when nu metal was becoming a thing, and there were a few underground fresh groups that were forming in the early 2000s. So I was like, I don't know how you would have combated that, and even grunge at that point without just doing something just drastically crazy.
I think they were unapologetically themselves, and there turned out to be a market for that. Think of the average band who wasn't Christian rock at the time. How many of them, because that's a whole different angle, like the PODs of the world. And think of how many other bands in the mainstream rock scene, alt metal, whatever you want to call it, were doing social commentary regularly in their songs. No one else was to their level.
definitely not on that same level. Not even remotely. I mean, they would sneak it in here and there, but it would kind of be more in like I want to say like a Stevie Wonder or maybe even a ZZ Top way. Just a little off colors, like, hey, got picked up by a douchebag cop today. Hey, I was at a riot. But they're not even. That's mild compared to what they're going. They're talking about, again, genocide and just some other mass extinction and just shit that no one wants to talk about. And yet they're somehow making it very fun and just great to listen to. And you're just like, wow, why am I listening to just a depressing song?
And it's amazing how timeless some of those particular songs are, like the Prison song. It's one of my favorites. You listen to that, it's still applicable today. That probably says a lot more about the system itself and how little it's changed with private prisons and drug wars and things like that. But man, you listen to that and you go, okay, they're a rock band, but really they're here to deliver a message, right? That's really what they care about. They don't care about the money, and it's clear they don't care about the money because they haven't made a damn album since mid 2000s, right? Since I was in high school, and there's some reasons we could talk about that in terms of why they haven't done those things since then.
Okay, we'll get there. So, I mean, hell, Tool did a song they called "Prison Sex," but I never got that vibe from it. It was just Tool being Tool. So,
I mean, Tool is technically just gorgeous. When they put together their arrangements, they're just beautiful, beautiful music.
I mean, yeah, I mean, they're kind of an orchestra in their own right, but yeah, I mean, I guess, yeah. So, I mean, there's just a slight bit more energy I'm just getting from System of a Down. So I'm gonna. What are your personal favorite songs by them?
Personal favorite. So my favorite song by them of all time is "Toxicity." 100%. That's a top.
Okay, sweet.
That's a top 3 or 5 song for me, all time. So not even just System. I love it. Lyrically beautiful. I love the drums in Toxicity are unreal. John must have just have had an all-time experience creating that percussion arrangement, and then just playing that. It's got to be so much fun if you're a drummer.
Nice.
I mean, Aerials is great. I love that whole Toxicity album. So Dear Dance, Prison Song, Needles, those are all fantastic.
I love Aerials and Dear Dance too. X, even Science and Intervision. Just kind of just.
That's very hold on, mother. Every song. My buddy used to be an idiot and sing Forest all the time because he pretended he was everyone's dad. So he'd be like, "Why won't you be my child?" And you're like, "Shut the hell up."
Right.
What else is really good? I mean, I love a lot of their stuff from Steal This Album that a lot of people don't think, especially the latter half of the album. So like Ego Brain, Streamline, Roulette, Mr. Jack. I enjoy Radio Video, Violent Pornography, the song.
I remember that one. Yes.
Song. Just for your listeners. Questions?
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I think it's just one of those. It's just, again, that was where I guess they were getting just too extreme for just all these just guys who just, I don't know. It seems like everyone can take certain stuff and just certain like angles or certain amount. And I don't know if they were just, if it wasn't getting as much airplay, or if they just, certain audiences were just wanted to bitch. They just didn't understand it. And I mean, I was already used to bands like Queens of the Stone Age, which were kind of coming around the same angle. So it was like, yeah, I mean, people are going to be very more experimental and unpredictable as this is going. You don't have to rely on just an MTV music video or just some other bizarre interview to make your career.
It's interesting as you talk about that, because I'm thinking, for someone like me who was a fan early on, that recognized they were experimental, that recognized they were going to talk about a variety of topics. So you were talking about this idea of, I think, and you tell me if I'm wrong, of at a certain point when they got more and more experimental later in their career, the average music fan just really couldn't follow along, right? Like, vicinity of obscenity.
That's kind of the vibe I'm getting. So it's speculation, but going off of your earlier point, it did seem like some people just even on like All Music and other places, we're just bitching about this album, even though it was making record sales and had an overall positive rating.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, and that will also come with a band like them putting out such a great record like Toxicity. It's, that next album is always the toughest one to release because everybody's holding it to that standard, and it can't. Not most when you put out an all-timer, your next one is not going to be an all-timer. That's just nature of the game, right? No,
kind of like when
unless you're the Beatles or something, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. Like most of the time, it's not going to be the same level for most musical, most bands. So I think for folks like myself and other fans who are on pace with them with the early stuff, watching them experiment and talk about all sorts of random topics politically, when they got into even weirder stuff in Mesmerize and Hypnotize and even Steal This Album, like I was down with it. I'll follow along right with you. I may not know anything about what you're talking about, but I'm used to you kind of doing this, especially if you go back to the early stuff and System of a Down. But the casual average fan, I get why they wouldn't. They'd be like, oh, I like Chop Suey, I like Aerials, but yeah, this is a little too weird for my liking. And that's okay. I think System wasn't writing music for those people.
Nah, Matt, and they probably wouldn't have liked it anyway. It's just too. It's not easy to explain.
No.
I don't think they want to be explained either.
BYOB was an interesting one though, because BYOB, because of the chorus, was so harmonic and so melodic that the average person would be like, "Oh man, I'm digging this," because it slows down, and obviously the whole song is trying to lull you into this like sleep mode, and that's what the government's doing when they're recruiting people to get into the military, right? It's like that's the purpose of the really catchy chorus, and that's kind of why I love that. Everything they do has a purpose to it. It's not just to sell records or to appease the ear. Like they're doing that because they're trying to, make a point about what the military does to recruit people. They try to make it palatable, and then they give you the reality later, and it's not always fun. So,
no,
that's the beautiful part. That's probably the closest thing on those last two albums, other than maybe like Hypnotize or Lost in Hollywood, that would have been a more palatable sound to the average listener.
Would you be surprised if this actually got played at like some riot or peace protest?
Would BYOB?
Or just any other songs? Just
at a peace protest?
Well, not peace protest, but just more of a just some outspoken activism.
I mean, Prison Song is one I could easily see people playing at a rally to talk about prison reform. I think it would be a perfect fit for that. Old school, right? A lot of the young people had no clue what's going on, but I guess they're about to learn. You're going to learn today, right? When it comes to that. So, yeah, I think they're, especially if related to anything Armenian, I think their songs are going to have a very direct connection.
Totally.
They love to shit all over LA in all their songs too. They that's where they started out. Well, they started in Glendale, but they've spent enough time in that soulless town. They want to make sure the world knows their criticism of Hollywood and that area and how vapid things are.
Right. I mean, I probably wouldn't care too and maybe that could be it too. I'm sure Storm Corporation was uncomfortable with what they're talking about. And I mean, there's a lot of corporate media nowadays, especially the top-notch reviewers. So I'm sure if someone thought, hey man, making fun of imperfect, scandal-driven celebs who I'm pals with, kind of like how Norm Macdonald got fired from SNL just for making an OJ joke. I'm like, well, who gives a fuck about OJ?
A lot of people at that time, I guess. I don't know.
Unfortunately, it's like
before my SNL time.
I had to unfriend some people post Rittenhouse. So I think that if anything, everyone can relate to all the situations they're talking about. It's just it's just like, don't take it personal, but I'm unfriending you. You're saying some fucked up shit.
Like, hey, we don't need to follow each other on this fake social media thing anymore. That's okay.
Oh, right. Oh, you did it. Did you see my post? Oh, you didn't like it all. Yeah. So
no, you're not that important.
Commented on Facebook and any of their songs? I can't think of any.
I don't even know. Probably not. I mean, haven't put out an album since '06, so I don't think they're doing much on there. You know, they put out their songs for in 2020, but there hasn't been much. The kind of the story behind why they haven't put out music in 16 years now is fascinating to me.
Okay, so that's where I'm behind on it. And you said they had a 2020 single, but I can't recall if that even got played here on any radio.
I don't know how. I don't think it got, because they didn't design it for radio play. I don't think. The two songs were called "Protect the Land" and "Genocidal Humanoids," and so when they put them out in 2020, people were like, "Holy crap! System of a Down releasing their first music in 14 years. Like, they gotta have a new album coming out." And they're like, "Nah, we're just trying to raise awareness about some of these conflicts in our media right now. So here are the two songs we're gonna do to raise that awareness." And everybody kind of was like, "Oh, damn it, let down," because they've been craving new content from System of a Down for so long. But they were pretty good tunes. One's a little bit faster than the other one a little bit more reminiscent of stuff, some of their stuff on Hypnotize and Mesmerize. Genocidal Humanoids takes it back. Feels like a little bit more old school System of a Down. But that's it. That's the only, they've all been doing like their own solo work over the years. I mean, Serge has put out at least 3 albums on his own, maybe more.
Yeah.
Now Darren was doing some stuff with the band.
Trey Cole is now working as a drummer for Green Day. So, and it's just so ironic because John Kiffmeyer was formerly of them. So it's like, yeah, everyone's got their own connects with the system. They'll get by. They'll keep getting by. But
oh yeah, they've been big. I mean, Serge has done his own creative stuff and written some decent music, some decent songs over the years.
I think he likes it that way. I think he's just like, yeah, I don't have to, all I got to focus on is me. I don't have to focus on if everyone else is getting along.
Yeah. Well, if you look it up, right, because most System of a Down fans wonder, why haven't they released an album since '06? And the answer is complicated, because you can't really get a direct answer. You know, you talk to Shavo and John, specifically
What's
Shavo,
a new thing coming out?
right? Because everybody's asking them what's going on. And it sounds like, based on what I read, that the creative process never quite aligns between Serge and the rest of the band. I think in particular, Serge and Darren, as the two singers and the two songwriters, have had their issues over the years. Not in a blow up, very publicly kind of way, but I think as a band behind the scenes trying to figure out, what do we write next? Where do we go? I just don't think they've all been able to agree.
It probably ate them up, kind of like how Jon Stewart had to lead The Daily Show. He's only been taking all this bullshit and summing it up in a comedic way for almost 2 decades. So yeah, that would probably eat me up too and say, I'm done.
Yep. And I think they're the kind of band who wants something very profound to say and doesn't feel like they have it right now. You know what I mean? Because it sounds like they've written stuff over the years. They've done, probably have some deep cut tracks that have never seen the light of day, but maybe it was no longer relevant, or they don't have the right messages that they want to share with the world. And that, I respect that. They're not coming out and just putting out shit music just to make money, right? They're being like, it's not the right time. We don't have the right message.
It might feel like all this shit is writing itself too much, where it's just not even entertaining to sing about.
Yeah, very well could be.
Yeah. Well, what would I possibly have to say that hasn't already been said about, white supremacy, presidential lies, and just celebrities, becoming famous for the wrong reasons? It's just like, it would be just too much to even just sum up. It'd be like, yeah, fuck the world. I don't want to talk about this anymore.
Yep. Maybe the negativity is so overwhelming. They're like, we're good. Like, we don't need to aid into that any further. People get it, right? Then maybe they just think they don't have as much of a place in the zeitgeist than they once did. I don't know, but they keep saying something's coming, but I doubt it. I think the last album from System of a Down came about in '06, and they'll pop in to do a tour every now and then, do a couple shows here and there, but I think the days of them producing full-length albums are over. Hopefully I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong.
And then Darren, he contributed to a 2014 Linkin Park song, and I didn't recall that. I didn't even know that was him, but I thought the voice sounded familiar. But, they'll keep definitely working with all kinds of groups, I think, like you say. And I'm sure, would you bet money that all the 5 versions, because there's different album covers for still this album, I bet yeah, I bet they're collector's items now, probably.
Probably. And they've said they have other songs from that time that they still have never released too. So if we get an album, it's probably just going to be a bunch of hidden tracks and stuff like that.
Coming in 2022, taboo material from System.
I will give them credit, and it's one thing I respect about them so much as one of my favorite bands is, in a world where bands are just putting out stuff to make themselves feel relevant, even though the quality's not there. They're like, we're not going to do that. We're going to stick with our 75 song catalog, and that's going to be it. And, the fans, we hate it because we want more because of that excellence that caught us in a moment. But, you don't want to tarnish the reputation with substandard musical performances. So
Totally.
Maybe we'll keep seeing Armenian conflicts, and that will keep getting us music.
Well, and I think they're going to keep
I don't want to wish
getting...
that upon people over there.
Well, and... Damn it, Kyle, don't wish that. Hopefully, if they did a tour, do you think it would be with someone like maybe Primus or just some other kind of band that's just kind of does like some flat speaking and then mixes it in with, crazy vocals and bass?
That's a great question. I know that for a while there, they were touring in Europe. They really weren't doing US shows. And then every once in a while they pop in and do like a tribute or something like that. Who would they tour with? I mean, they're so big, they don't really have to tour with anyone. They can just do their own thing. And then it's a question of who tours with them versus a lot of their earlier days. They were tagging along with, the Ozfests of the world and a little bit of Primus. But I think Primus is too far out of the mainstream at this moment in time. I don't think that would be.
Yeah, Les Claypool is just, he's just scoring cartoons now. He's not.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, more or less, I do love how just other songs like Soil talk about, suicide. And so that's just kind of been their theme and everything. And they've been able to talk about this without committing actual career suicide. So I think they are.
It's impressive. That's what happens when your brand is to always talk about it, right? Because then everybody expects it and they give more grace for you to talk about whatever it is you want. If you only do it every once in a while, I think that gets to your point of career suicide, where someone takes a chance because they're normally playing it safe, right? And then they get shot down because their fans aren't used to that. System Down's like, we're going to talk about all the politics all the time.
They got it all out there. So anyone who wants to reject us, now's the time. And you love us, so fuck you. We're going to keep playing. But
we're one of those. We're not for you, and that's okay. Move on. Keep going. But the people that really enjoy us, they love us. That's our brand. So I mean, think about it. Their impact, again, 5 albums in 2005. I think it was 2005 when they released Mesmerize, and then they released Hypnotize a year later in 2006. They are one of 4 acts ever to have 2 number 1 albums in the same year. Do you know who the other 3 were?
From that year would have been Red Hot Chili Peppers?
It's not from that year. All time. 3 other acts, performers, all time that have had 2 number 1 albums in the same year.
You're talking 70s, 80s, and in general.
60s. 90s.
Feels got to be in there somewhere, probably.
60s, 90s, early 2000s.
Maybe David
The
Bowie?
Beatles are one of them.
Okay.
So you nailed that. You got the old one.
Okay. David Bowie?
No,
not even close.
more contemporary. 90s and early 2000s. Hip hop. That's my.
Tupac?
Tupac.
Okay.
Doing well. You won't get the third one though.
Well, at least you're honest. Okay, it's all downhill from here.
Here's your hint. Are you ready for your hint?
Yes. Fuck.
Come on. Who else? There's no other artists who bark. Come on.
Artists. Okay, so plural.
No artists. Yeah, I mean it's one person. This person died recently, and he barks.
DMX, my man.
DMX.
I didn't know he was number 1. Shit.
Yeah, 2 number 1s in the same year. So that just goes to show. And on those were.
I couldn't tell if you were trying to do a Baha Man or something.
I mean, it could be Baha Man. That's true.
Out.
But who wouldn't? Baha Men didn't have 1 number 1. Album, 2 in 1 year.
Went back to
You
Jamaica.
got to have more
after.
than one song that's worthwhile to get there. So, but that's true. That's another band that would bark. So you nailed that one. Huge impact for
That's
for
fucking
5
awesome.
albums. Yeah.
Hey, all 3 favorites. Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so they're up there with the Beatles, DMX, and Tupac. That's fucking awesome.
Yeah, what a weird collection of performers. You know,
That's
you
just too
imagine the
awesome.
Beatles like one day telling John Lennon that you're going to be in the same fraternity of excellence with 2 rappers and an Armenian heavy metal band.
Yeah, I wouldn't care afterwards either. I'd be like, yeah, that
Okay,
happened.
I imagine all the people. That's what he would say.
That's great. And I take it, being the hardcore fan you are, that you knew that their original name was Victims of the Down.
Yep.
Do you think that could have actually still sold, or would that just have been just too depressing?
I think it would have sold. It would have been weirder for people to get behind, but that system, I think, was a smart move.
I think people really do open up. And I mean, with all the mental health podcasts coming out, I mean, I've just always seen, I mean, I knew emo kids. Everyone did, you know, growing up in junior high and high school. And I saw some who jokes. I don't know why they would joke, but they joke that they like to cut their wrists non-lethally. And it's just like, but yeah, they were definitely listening to music like this and everything. And I think I seriously got a sense is like that stuff like this was just kind of opening up and just to their possibilities. It's like, hey, I hate my shitty existence, but I'm staying alive because there's people who feel my pain and share it.
Yeah. There's some of that here. I think a lot of those kids are listening to the emo scene too, which was a little bit more teenage angst. You know, the Hawthorne Heights and Taking Back Sundays of the world and My Chemical Romance, who are a little bit more palatable from a sound standpoint, right? And
when they came out, I couldn't tell them apart from the Killers and other bands that were coming out. It just, I mean, they stand out differently, but there was another. It was just kind of, they were kind of more pop flavored rock.
Ohio's for Lovers still one of my favorite songs to this day, and I was
I'm not.
kid.
This
The
is
banger.
not a bash, but yeah, I'm just
The banger, man.
it was a banger. So that's a good point too, because I mean, and yeah, those bands make you feel good while talking about occasionally dramatic stuff, and is like these guys. I don't think they make anyone feel good, but they definitely are emotional, and so they hit that button.
Yeah, there's not really a song in their catalog where I'm like, this is a feel-good song. There's funny songs.
Oh, yeah.
Revenge's pretty funny. Cigaro's pretty funny. Like, there are funny songs, but they're not inspirational tunes.
No.
You know what I mean? There's no Katy Perry's in this catalog. You know what I mean?
Oh, that would be funny. Talking about the pop star.
There's really none of that. I mean, I'm looking through right now and I'm trying to figure out like one song where it would be considered inspirational. They either tell a weird story, they talk about something political, they're designed to make you laugh, like bounce, like talk about pogo sticks. Like what? You can see why people are like, what are you talking about? Pogo, down, pogo.
I mean, I think you're on to something. I think maybe the dark comedy was definitely what helped them get into the door in some measure. So regardless of whether anyone was actually listening to it closely, they already had their attention.
Yep, 100%. And you just went to other bands to get your happy-go-lucky inspirational stuff. That's just not why you went to System of a Down.
Right.
You know?
I mean,
Fine.
Serge worked as a shoe salesman and ran a computer software company. Those are both depressing industries alone. So I'm sure he just had to put everything of his time working at either one, probably.
A fatal flaw for a lot of bands is they try to be a lot to everybody, right? And System of a Down understood its niche, and they stayed in that pocket.
Stop trying to appeal. Don't you love how when they were asked, when they were getting Grammy attention and they were asked to perform, I think it was Rituals or something, and they're just like, nah, we're good. We're not.
Yeah, they probably asked them to perform like Aerials. Aerials or Toxicity.
I think that's what it was. Yeah.
They're like, we're not going to endorse this show. Thank you for nominating us, but and they won a few awards along the way. They did pretty well for themselves. They sold over 40 million records worldwide, so they did well financially as long as they had a good record deal in place.
That means
Yeah. So I'll give you my rundown of albums. There's only 5, so this is really easy to do. Obvious number 1, Toxicity. We don't really need to spend any more time talking about that. But for me, it's one of the best albums of all time, so it's going to be their number 1. 5, bottom of the list, System of a Down, their original. Again, unrefined sound, still pretty raw. There's some good tunes on there, but not as much as comparably to the other albums that they had. So those are the obvious ones. Shuffling around 2 through 4 is where things get interesting. I tend to gravitate towards Mesmerize at number 2 with BYOB, Radio Video, Question, Old School Hollywood. It's got some more radio-friendly tunes on it, and it's got some of the absurd stuff that they normally sing about. I tossed up that and Steal This Album. Steal This Album, I think, has a lot of good deep cuts that a lot of people don't realize. It doesn't have nearly the radio cuts. Intervision's really the only song on there that's like a decent radio. That and Boom, I guess, which is very political.
Even if you don't want it on your playlist, I can't think of any tune that made me say, "Oh, that was a waste of my time. I'm so sorry I messed with that." Nope. I can't think of anywhere. I'm just like, no thought went into that, or it's weird, but there's a purpose behind it.
I don't know if there's a bad System of a Down song. There might be ones that you prefer less than others, but
even if you don't care for it, why would you give a shitty rating to it? It's just like, it's not. Some of it is not meant to be enjoyed at all. It's kind of anti-music. So it's just like, it's kind of like if you were to come up to, I keep doing the film contrast, but it's just how I roll here. So it's like, it would be like if you went up to David Lynch and said, "Why do you make movies that don't make any sense?" It's just like, it'd be just kind of like, and yeah, no, that's, or why are you going to a comedian and telling them, "Why do you tell dirty jokes?" It's like, well, that's what they're made of.
That's what I do.
Makes them up. Thanks. I just say you don't find me entertaining or fuck off. It's just like, it's just, and I think if anything, if anyone were to go out of their way to just be like, "I absolutely detest System of a Down," they would have either never liked any kind of hard rock or metal alternative, or just probably been, I don't know, maybe they are a scandal-ridden person who they're somehow detecting that they're being mocked in some capacity because they're of that demographic. I can't think of anyone who would actually want to make it their mission to hate this band. I think. Yeah,
it's just like, it's not for me, right? That's one of those.
I don't get it.
You can, once you understand what they're trying to do and the messages they're trying to tell, then you're like, you could respect it. It just may not be your sound. Right? And I think that's
all I can think. Yeah.
Of the band, right? Like, it's not for me, but I respect what they're doing. And as a band, that's what you want. Your haters, when your haters are people that saying, "It's not for me, but I respect what you're doing," then you're doing it right. You're sticking to what you're there to do. So, more power to the guys, man. They built a pretty good career. Every song is pretty good, and it's great for a road trip. Or me, I watch a lot of reaction videos, and so I love watching people react to bands that I like. And System of a Down is one of those ones where it gives you so much to process. And for folks who want music that makes them think, that gives them lyrics that's provocative, this is a rich market to dig into. System of a Down. It's not boring.
Right?
Farthest thing from.
I mean, I'm really even surprised that they were able to do what they did without doing anything even just any more extreme. Because I think, like, Rage Against the Machine, they were kind of a similar kind of manic energy.
Yep.
But they blew their load way too soon, and then they did that infamous SNL appearance. It's like, yeah, dude, I know what you're going for, and I mean, but
that's a great comparison, though, in terms of just like political commentary through hard rock music. I think.
Oh, totally.
Rage is a great comparison.
And they still get radio play, but yeah, it's just like that killed them in the industry. Like, no one could defend them once they pulled that political card and that, war-torn America. And it was just like, yeah, it should have done it another way, to where it's like, you should have done it a little more sneakier kind of way, where, because when you do a flag burn, you're instantly, even if you're doing it for a totally different reason, you're instantly on the anti-American, watch list. And
the System of a Down being Armenian of Armenian descent, they kind of get a little bit of a pass from the American public. Yeah, they're Americans, right? Either born here through immigration, but because they don't look like the normal American, to like mainstream white America, they're almost seen as outsiders, I think, to a lot of people. And so they don't, they probably don't get viewed the same way that a Rage Against the Machine or another band would be, full of like,
oh, totally,
a different complexion, a different profile. So, and since they're a lot of times talking about their own countries and other places, right, then it's not just like criticize America. There's a lot of criticizing America.
America's already
100%.
mirroring what their culture's doing,
But they're also criticizing in a way to where people are like, you're not wrong. Like
right.
You know what I mean? Like, it's hard to refute a lot of it. Like you listen to Prison Song, you're like, yeah, they're using data and stats. You really can't refute that.
And they're saying it very fast. So like anyone who's just like looking for some reason to boycott something from the radio, good luck keeping up.
And Rage songs are very famous for repeating over and over and over and over again. Like, Rage songs are very repetitive, right? And that, again, it's a mini criticism. It's not a huge criticism, but when you continue to say, like Bulls on Parade, like repeating the same thing over and over and over again, at a certain point, it like gets beat into people's heads, and that's probably what annoys them. They're like, all right, I got it the first 15 times you said it, right? Where a system doesn't do that, because they're always changing up the approach. They're going from one flow to the next flow, different commentary. And so every time you start to get annoyed, they got you moving, right? They go to the next thing, and then they hit you with some bizarre topic about porn the next time, or whatever. So they're always keeping you guessing.
For sure. Man, that's a good point too. I mean, it's not even just right people get my joke, I mean, if anything, they're blunt without like being like just putting it all out there. I think they had plenty of cards to play, and Rage just put everything out there to where they were just practically naked. They had literally no way to navigate out of there, and they weren't prepared to. They just kind of just wanted to angrily like rant it out. And it was just like, I get it, and I totally get it. And like you say, we can understand how artists like to channel frustration, and how half the time people will jump onto bandwagons just because a friend of theirs bitched, or they heard something bad about you, but they don't know the reasons why you're considered infamous all of a sudden. And I think this was years before everyone was compiling just more and more on how what the word celebrity really truly means. And I think that they're making such commentary. I think even if anyone were to lampoon them, they were most comfortable just probably talking about Chop Suey. But I think everyone, even the wisest, knew, they're making fun of or not even necessarily making fun, but they're satirizing, such morbid material. Like, I got nothing. they win. I'll make fun of how, other than Chop Suey, I can't think of anyone, other than even the band appearing as themselves on South Park. I can't think of anyone else wanting to take them on. And I mean, South Park's kind of a similar mentality. It's just like make fun of everything wrong with everything, and have all these douchebags play, make fun of each other. And basically, everyone in South Park is a praying mantis who eats each other. And System of a Down is making fun of the very mantises that eat each other.
If you're an equal opportunity, you can get away with a lot more. Right? You can say a lot more. You can dig into certain topics, and to kind of illuminate our point about Rage Against the Machine and just like beating the point into people's brains. So in Killing in the Name of, or Killing in the Name, the last line of the song is "Fuck you, I won't do what you tell me." They say it 16 times in a row before the song ends. So like they really pound it into your head, and they say, "And now you do what they told you. Now you're under control," 8 times in a row. Right, it's just a very repetitive song, and so
it's still played on the radio. It used to be, if there were that many F-bombs, you could not get radio play. And it's like, nah, go for it.
It's catchy as hell. It's really catchy, but it's repetitive, right? It's very repetitive, and then it just drives people nuts after a while. If they're not down with what you're saying, then it's literally beating a dead horse into their brains.
Oh,
So
totally.
it's fascinating.
And the last thing you need to do is, just contribute to the kicking of the lifelessness.
Yep. Hey, both had successful careers, some longer than others. So
Yeah, I have seen some snobby music critics love to gang up on Rage, but I don't think anyone wants to fuck with System. I think they just know, again, they're smarter than the average bear, and the last thing, if anything, they'll probably sing about me, and I don't want that.
I don't know if they're like quite like Eminem or anything like that, because you criticize Eminem, you end up in one of his songs.
Oh yeah, that would be funny. Yeah, if System, that would be funny if System. Well, no, we're not going to waste time on you, but we'll let you know one of our rap buddies who could totally lampoon you.
Maybe, yeah, and they can be my bully. And just so your listeners know, I like Rage Against the Machine. I'm not a Rage hater. I just think their songs can be very repetitive sometimes, and that can annoy people.
And that's just it too. I mean, I listen to them in sparse, ness and too, and like you say, I mean, I might have like 2 songs. That's it. I'm not going to have a whole album, because then I'll just be like, okay, now they're not whiny, but they're getting a little too over the top for me, and I gotta, Rage you would put on if you want a party where everyone is just fucking out of control, and it's like Rage. I want him to just kind of give him get everyone in the mood, and then just kill it. Switch to someone a little more lighter or a little less over the top.
Yep. I haven't listened enough of their like album plays to know all. I just know a lot of the popular stuff that's played over the years on the radio. So,
and I think that's a good segue, because I mean, all these guys still get a lot of radio play, so everyone's heard them. Everyone has heard them, whether they know it or not. And I think if anything, they are also allowing themselves to, for better or worse, probably they'll always be relevant in some capacity, even though they haven't done anything in years. So it's like what's the best way to say this? That they made their careers overnight. But it wasn't. They weren't thinking about whether or not they'd make it or not. They were thinking about, what do I want to sing about? Concentrating on the craft, and it just paid off, as opposed to, I got to worry about this versus that. I think they all they must have been just so well read, or been able to see through a lot of stuff, and picked enough brains to where it's like, I know what this is entailing the minute I sign up, for this.
100%. You listen to that first album and you hear a song like Sugar, and your immediate thought has to be, for a new band, they don't care what people think of them. They just don't, right? Like no band that wants to play it safe is going to release a song like Sugar publicly on the radio, because it's so unique, so different and bizarre, right? And there's real commentary behind the song, but the average new metal hard rock band is not going to release a song like that early on, right? It's intentionally provocative, right? It's so unique. So it just goes to show they didn't care. They're trying to do their thing, and they found a market, and it has worked out very well for them. And they've had a weird 15 years of not putting out any new music and just doing solo stuff.
Yeah, I got nothing. You summed it up.
Well, let's wrap this puppy up then. Let's call it a day.
So they're for sure in your top 10.
Oh, they're top 3 for me, 100%.
Okay, sweet. I don't know if they're into my top 10, but they're definitely in my. They'd be somewhere in the top 40, top 50, just because you can't not acknowledge them. Like, even if you don't want to acknowledge them, like, I think, again, everyone knows they're just too smart for the average bear. They're just too good at lampooning and talking about fucked up shit that no one else would dare intrude. They're just too edgy for edgy's sake. So it's like, they earn their keep overnight. And if people still want you to come back and can still be cool with the fact that you've said your piece, you've said all you want to say, that's still a rare, accolade in and of itself. It's just like, okay, you left us all these awards, and I would not be surprised if today's people who do satire listen to them on a regular basis. They probably eat them up. They wake up to them. I think my brother at one point had one of their songs as like his wake up alarm on one particular day, which he knew was going to be.
I like him. I like him already.
Shout out to my boy Abe. Kyle, I will let you plug the stellar acting playlist that is Munsons at the Movies.
Yeah, we spent 45 minutes to an hour talking about music, and that's not even the world I live in most of the days, right? But you just threw out a couple of bands that I really like and been listening to for a lot of years, and I know how to do good research, so this is
yes.
Right? So I'm over at the Munsons at the Movies podcast. If you don't know what that is about, you can find us on Twitter and Instagram, Munsons at Movies and Munsons at the Movies. We have a mega list of actors that we select from. We randomly draw 5 of them from that big list. We spin a wheel. Whatever the wheel selects, we cover that actor's life and career. So we do a full deep dive. We talk about all the big roles. We talk about the stuff that people know, but we really pride ourselves on getting into as many of the deep cuts as we can. And we talk about their life and the context of how they grew up and how that colored and painted a picture for who they were as a performer years later. You know, we really try to tell the full story of that performer. And in that process, we bring in guests like Cam, who's been on a couple times for
too kind
Keith David and Dennis Haysbert episodes. And so if you're interested in just hearing Cam's voice, you can check those out. But otherwise, we've got a catalog of about 55 episodes at this point. And we're just about to record episode 56. So
already,
no matter who you like, there should be at least 1 or 2 actors that you enjoy that you can dig in and hear us try to be entertaining and informative.
Shameless plug. Listen to their episodes of Natasha Lyonne, Allison Janney, J-Lo, even just all these other, just Jim Carrey. But I mean, there's plenty of other ones. I mean, and Gary Cole, obviously. But it's just like there's so many that, again, they took the trouble to, at least see a few episodes of shows they're in and study their acting movement and staging and all that. And it's always a tough predicament. The score is just always so much fun because, again, it's like, just like we're rating these bands, it's like, love it. It's not their best, or they're great, but they're not the best of all time, or they're good, but they're not great. Or they're
it all comes down to whatever your personal preference is at the end of the day, in terms of what you like and what you dislike.
And the Thompson one was great because it's like, yeah, brilliant actress, but I don't care for some of her period pieces, It's like,
yeah, but I gave her 94. It's the highest score I've ever given anybody. So I think she's the most well-rounded performer that we've covered. That's just my opinion on things. So that's the beauty of it. We'll cover big names like Jim Carrey and Cameron Diaz, huge mainstream actors, and then we'll cover the Jaimin Hansus of the world, the Natasha Lyonnes, the Regina Halls, who's actually gotten a lot more mainstream recently. People are fallen in love with her, and she's going to host the Oscars this year too, which is pretty cool.
Really? Okay.
Yep. Her, Amy Schumer, and Wanda Sykes are the 3 hosts of the Oscars. So it'll be an interesting production. Let's say that. So yeah, I'm excited. We're doing a lot of really cool stuff in Munson's Land. So check us out. Find an episode you like, dig in a little bit.
Any nostalgia, any just light humor for a blunt acting career, that is Munson's at the Movies, so check them out. So thank you ever so much again for we've done so many episodes back to back. I gotta get on this track.
Trying to remember what number you're on at this point.
Yeah, no. Yeah, no, I don't have an identity crisis, or I'm bordering on bipolar just yet, but I'm definitely got a
dangerously close.
I hope not. I haven't had any breakdowns, so that's good. So thank you, Kyle, again for summing up verbal mental breakdowns that are System of a Down.
Absolutely, man. I'm always glad to be here, and big fan of the pod. So I'd like to be along with the journey if I can be.
Thank you so much, and again, fuck you, COVID.
100%.
We'll return after these messages.
Hey, feeling down? Feeling low? Not enough podcasts about movies in your life? Why not try
They must be destroyed on sight.
the new Podcast Cure-All, sure to get you right with the world and on a path to better living. We have exploitation, we have Italian horror, we have zombies, we have slashers, we have crime films, we have spaghetti westerns, we even have sci-fi and sex comedies. So take a dose of
They must be destroyed on sight.
as needed, and let the hosts, Lee Russell, Daniel Harper, Paul Romali, and the odd guest host cure what ails you.
Warning, may cause atrophy, African consumption, black fever, bone shave, chin cough, colic, cramp colic, dropsy of the brain, elephantitis, grocer's itch, jaundice, mania, miasma, mortification, palsy, Pott's disease, rheumatism, scurvy, St. Anthony's fire, summer complaint, and worm fit in some people. Consult a physician before listening.
Did you ever see a film at such a young age it left you traumatized with cinematic wounds? Necrophilia. It's a dead issue, man. Don't push it. Cinema Psyops is a weekly podcast documenting an ongoing experiment on the mind of an unwilling test subject.
No one should have to watch this movie.
Oh, no one should have to watch this?
No one should have to watch this movie.
Surprisingly, it's not a topic that a lot of people really want to tackle.
I'm shocked, prudes.
I know, really.
Right?
It's the next sexual frontier that no one wants to explore.
I am, in the most sincerest of senses, disappointed in you.
It takes a powerful goddess like Connie, jam her arm down the monster's throat and kill it. Oh, I'm still tripping out over that. Even as a kid, I was like, I gotta find a girl like that. Every week, I get a new look of disappointment that I never thought I could get out of her.
Unimaginable. At 12 years old, you should not be watching this movie.
Obviously.
At 13, you should not be. 14, you shouldn't be. I'm not entirely sure even 17-year-olds should be watching this.
Just because you're offended by something doesn't mean that you have the right to demand that it doesn't exist. Watching this film again, I had all of this like little nerd glee with everything that kept
little
popping
history doll
Yeah,
popping up
absolutely.
at you.
So I totally loved this film.
Hey, I know why you couldn't see that. It's because your brain's warped from watching this shit at 12 years old.
Yeah, this is a rough movie. I told you ahead of time when we were getting ready to do it that it was
How
going to be
did
a
you
rough
watch
one.
this shit at 12?
Because physical wounds heal, cinematic ones don't. Listen to Cinema Psyops.
Hey everybody, I'm Corey.
And I'm Zach, and we're the hosts of Podcasting After Dark, a cast dedicated to late-night horror and sci-fi of the 80s and 90s, often found on HBO and Cinemax.
You know, the movies your parents didn't want you watching as a kid. You can find us every other week on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, and Stitcher.
This is what you want.
This is what you get.
Greetings, friends. My name is Dean Legero, and I'm the host of the 3324 podcast. I invite you to join me and my lifelong friend Eric Kuber to come with us as we discuss the music and movies that shaped our life. Each week, we'll pick an album or film that we really connect to, and not only give you some great info and trivia, but also discuss, debate, and celebrate what it means to us and the journey it took us on. We also look forward to hearing from you and giving us some of your picks for us to check out and discuss. I think it'll be a really fun experience, so come along with us for the ride. You can find us on your favorite podcast provider and at 3324.buzzsprout.com. Thanks for your time, and welcome to the 3324 family.
It's time, let's check our cue, baby. Pair it with a couple brews, baby. We love good movies. We love the bad ones too. So we watch them all and pass their lessons on to you. Oh yeah. Everything I learned from movies helps to make life a little bit groovy. With a one-last plot holes and gratuitous movies. It's time to get busy with your friend Steve and Izzy. At eilfm.podbean.com.
Follow us on the web on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. The podcast is available on Podbean, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Anchor, Apple, and anywhere else podcasts are available. Feel free to review our show and leave comments on any of those sites. Thanks a million for listening.
It's a jacked up